If you were to punch someone's jaw or a hole in your bedroom wall, you would make a strong fist with a firm wrist, right? This would allow you to impact with the most power. Whereas punching with a soft fist and relaxed wrist might cause more damage to you than your opponent. The idea here is the same when it comes to striking the ground. We want to contact the ground with stiff ankles and feet in order to impact the ground with the most power. If we are sprinting with relaxed ankles and feet, we could end up with shin splints, calf, Achilles, and or ankle joint injuries. In fact, according to literature, an elite sprinter and elite boxer both strike with similar amounts of force relative to their body weight. Let's take a closer look right here. In this case, you can see that the athlete is pointing his toes down in order to try and get more stride length. Not to mention he's overstriding and putting excessive stress on his hamstrings. The problem we're looking at here is over-plantar flexion. The athlete is pointing down his feet too much, and too much plantar flexion can make it harder to contact the ground with stiff ankles. So how does this affect the entire sprint? Well, we already know, according to science, that faster speeds are achieved by putting more force into the ground in less time to achieve longer stride lengths. This is a bit hard to do with soft ankles, much like it would be hard to knock out an opponent with a soft fist. By the way, to avoid any confusion, when I say too much plantar flexion, I'm talking about during upright sprinting. During the first 3 steps is a whole different story. All right, now we've established that hitting the ground with soft ankles is bad, stiff ankles is good, and too much plantar flexion makes it harder to contact with stiff ankles. The next question is, how do you know if you have soft ankles? There's 3 ways you could find out on your own. I'll share with you what they are from easiest to hardest. One way is to simply ask yourself, are you someone that runs on their toes, struggles with top speed, is dealing with shin splints, Achilles pain, ankle joint pain, calf pain, or foot pain? If you answered yes to 1 or more of those questions, then there's a possibility that you are landing with soft ankles. 2 is for you to analyze your video while running at top speed and see if your foot is spending too much time on the ground. A clear indication of this is your leg takes too long to recover and looks like this upon initial ground contact. The third way, and arguably the most objective way, is to get your RSI score. RSI stands for Reactive Strength Index. This measures your ability to absorb, then rapidly produce maximum forces. There's various ways to get your RSI score. One method would be to perform 10 consecutive squat jumps with the hands on the waist. Then you would get the average height and ground contact time of the 5 best jumps and divide them to get your RSI. Based on your RSI score, you can compare yourself to standardized numbers or with your teammates to see where you rank. Since you watched this far into the video, can you hit the like button for the algorithm?
I just sit and watch.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you ever think about running again?
I don't think my coach will coach me.
If that's the case, have you taken a look at the Sprint Club? We get exercises, workout programs, coaching calls, and even do live video analysis to help you run faster.
If I'm not motivated to do it, then it's gonna be hard for me, so.
That's the great thing about the Sprint Club. During our coaching calls, we can answer questions, break down your video live, and we even bring on experts from around the world to help keep you accountable.
I have 1 more year on my contract, why not?
Yeah, just whenever you want, check out the pinned comment down below for more info. The question now is, how can you turn soft ankles into stiff ankles in order to reduce risk of injury, hit the ground more powerfully, and run faster? If you want to develop stiff ankles, one of the first things I would look at would be your ankle mobility. Your ankles should be able to dorsiflex, plantar flex, invert, and evert without too much effort. If you cannot control the foot while you're moving slowly, imagine how that will affect you when you're sprinting at maximum velocity. There's plenty of tests you can do for your ankle mobility, but one quick way is through a bodyweight squat. You pick the width and the angle of the feet, then get into a bodyweight squat. Are you able to keep the heels down? Do your feet flatten out? Does your big toe try to come off the ground? If the foot struggles to find stability in a simple bodyweight squat, then we're gonna take a closer look at why this is happening. Assuming you have sufficient mobility in your ankle, the second thing I look at is, are you striking the ground with too much plantar flexion? Everyone can decide for themselves where they believe an athlete should make contact with the foot while sprinting. However, the experts that I trust, footage I've seen, and basic physics tells me that running on the toes will make it harder to strike with stiff ankles and run faster.
One thing that drives me nuts whenever people talk about lengthening stride is the way how some athletes point their toes to get that extra length.
Third, assuming we took care of the ankle mobility and over-plantar flexion, I'm going to focus on training your tendons through plyometrics. Training your tendons is not like training your muscles or cardiovascular system. If you don't know what you're doing, it's really easy to get hurt. Let me give you a framework for how to approach your plyometrics if you don't already have a coach who knows what they're doing. In terms of progression, on one side of the spectrum, we have simple, low impact movements. For example, 2-leg pogo hops. On the other side, we have complex, high impact movements. For example, death jumps from a tall box onto another box. Along this spectrum, there's several ways to increase the difficulty as you progress, such as switching from 2 legs to 1 leg, increasing the height or distance of the plyometric movement. Another important thing to consider is the surface on which you perform the plyometrics. On one side of the spectrum, we have a soft surface like sand. Then on the other side, there's a harder surface like track or wood. As we progress, we can go from the softer, lower impact surfaces towards the harder, higher impact ones. Finally, another important thing to consider is the type of shoes you are wearing. On one side of the spectrum, you have thick running shoes with big heels. On the other side, you are barefoot. Early on, you would probably start with shoes that have a thicker sole, which absorb more forces and provide you more protection. Then progress to less protection and let your foot do more of the work. All right, look, if you have weak feet and it sounds a bit too complicated, I'm gonna tell you the most simple way to strengthen your feet. That's what for me and other guys inside the Sprint Club. Just walk around barefoot on your toes like this for 5 minutes every single day around your house. Just take out your phone, scroll around, do whatever. Before you know it, time will pass. See if after doing that for 1 month, your foot and ankle doesn't completely transform. If you need help testing your RSI, ankle mobility, developing your stiff ankles, or simply would like a video analysis of your sprint, see the pinned comment down below. In the meantime, to learn more about some mistakes that could be holding back your speed, click here. I show 6 common mistakes that I've seen athletes make that holds them back from running fast, and there's a possibility you're making at least one of these. To see what they are, and if you're making any of these mistakes, click here.